Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Radio Show, episode 2. I am Tim Radio, and today we're going to do the news roundup. So first off, in Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, Liberal Prime Minister, kind of prompted some Wexit talk, so the West exiting, similar to Brexit and even the California exit movement to try to separate from the rest of the country because of political division. The Conservatives basically swiped all the seats away from Liberals on the west of Canada, the western provinces like Alberta, and they're very much an oil province. They get a lot of their energy and their money and stuff from their own natural oil fields and oil sands and stuff like that. So there's always been a pretty big divide between that part of the country and the more liberal provinces, especially provinces like Quebec that receive a lot of money from Alberta and the money that they make because of equalization payments and stuff like that. So there's a lot of contention between those two kind of sides of the political spectrum in Canada. So we'll see what happens there. Nothing serious yet. There's no serious movement towards it. It's just a lot of people upset about the lack of direction for the right in Canada through politics and economic stuff. So a little bit of divide there, but interesting to see what happens in the coming months. He's basically going to have to reconcile with, he's going to have to work with these other party leaders. Like the Conservatives have Andrew Scheer, which they're even talking now that Andrew Scheer might have to step aside just because he couldn't get them over that edge. And most people that were voting for Conservatives were voting to get rid of Trudeau or voting for Conservatives because that's the party they always vote for. So they don't really vote for the leader as much as they're voting for the party. And in this case, where Trudeau, a lot of people voted for Trudeau, and a lot of people vote for the party. So it's kind of a mix between the two there. Argentina also is getting a new president, Alberto Fernandez. It's a leftist government coming in. So Brazil kind of recently got a right-sided government, a conservative government, and the Argentinians voted in a leftist this time. But Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, not sure how you say that, but they also call it CFK, I guess. Now, she was actually a first lady, and then she went into power as actual president for about 7 years, I think 2007 to 15, 8 years, I guess. And supposedly did a decent job. Basically come back now as the running mate with the actual president now, who is Alberto Fernandez. So they're hoping to try to stop all this inflation. Argentina's having a really hard time. They're just pumping in money into it with inflation, destroying the value of their dollar. And there's not really a way out of it yet. Tons and tons of problems, infrastructure problems, access to medicine, food, clean water, all that kind of stuff. They're having tons and tons of issues. So with this change of power, they might actually see some kind of move forward, hopefully. A little funny clip with Donald Trump doing this event with Halloween. These kids, coming up to him with looking for Halloween candy. So it's some little PR thing they do, whatever. And he hands candy to them. So just watch this. It's kind of funny. So little cute things. It's kind of funny. Like you kind of see that disconnection that Trump has with just interacting with kids and people and stuff like that. He's not a kid person. Obviously, he's just not a kid kind of guy. He basically wants to wait till his kids are about adult age before he even really, starts bonding with them, I think. But the odd thing was that people just started jumping on this right away to be able to use it to mock him with it and stuff. I'm like, it's a little overblown. It's kind of an awkward, weird thing to just stand there and hand chocolate bars to kids coming up who don't even know who you are, really. And a little minion kid who doesn't even have a bag or anything. He can't even give them a candy. And I think his arms are in there. That's not even his arms. But it's a fail. It's an epic fail. They're playing with the kids, and it's a fail. Even when passing out Halloween candy, Donald Trump is a complete day. I mean, just stuff like this is just bizarre. Using an Easter basket. So the fact he's using a little Easter basket to pass out the candy, just weird. I mean, people just really analyze this stuff a little too deep. I mean, even InfoWars covering all the stuff on the left that the people are ready. Even that's just, who cares? Just, let's move on. Anyway, Kanye West is selling Jesus King sweatshirt and sweatpants, so pretty expensive. Supposed to be kind of rate woke now and stuff, but charging pretty high prices for stuff. Now, when I read this here, I thought it was kind of interesting. It says Jesus King crew neck, color navy, easy garment, 100% cotton, ships in 4 to 5 weeks. All purchases include pre-sale. It kind of sounds like it includes like a ticket or something, but it's actually 2 lines here as one sentence. So all purchases include pre-sale ticket access to an upcoming Kanye West event. 3 lines, sorry. So you kind of read it like Kanye West event. You think, okay, ticket access to an upcoming Kanye. Okay, that's fine. All purchases include pre-sale. So you don't really necessarily read it as one line for these 3, because there should be some different spacing, some lines or something to kind of indicate it's actually, this is one line and these are all, the rest are separate. So you get what I'm saying there. A little tricky, I think. Basically, you buy this, you get access to be able to purchase a pre-sale ticket to an event, which you don't even know which event it is. It's just you'll have some access to it, I guess. So it's kind of interesting, but people are kind of shitting on him for that. I mean, it's capitalism. If he wants to earn a bunch of money and people want to give him the bunch of money and he wants to go spend it on Christianity and stuff like that and do different events and push all that kind of stuff, then so be it. Now, PragerU posted this little clip from him, which was pretty interesting, so check this out.
It's 1 in 3 African Americans locked up in this country. His reality's here. Abraham Lincoln was the Whig Party. That's the Republican Party that freed the slaves. That's the Republican Party that freed the slaves. And for a year, people want to call me a coon. Because I chose my right. In America, we got the right? We got our own right to our own opinions, right? But somebody tell me because of my...
So, he says that statistically and historically for probably the last 30 years or so, African Americans in the States would vote Democrat. So it's very heavily left-leaning, a bit like 80-90% would vote Democrat. And so you could kind of hear the crowd kind of respond to that a little bit, saying like, ooh, because there's just, the left is kind of painted the right to be kind of racist, like kind of painting them to look like the slavery party. So even when you say that, it kind of sounds wrong that the Republicans ended slavery. That was the party that ended slavery. So I mean, there's more to it than that. It's not quite that simple, but it's a little interesting to see him say something like that, and even among his own crowd and stuff, to have that little bit of division. But he just keeps hammering home. And PragerU does a good job of a lot of stuff. This I'll link to this clip there to see the rest of it. But basically, they go in to see like what actually, what the facts are on that. So I mean, they're a right-leaning organization themselves. Take that with a grain of salt. But they do a lot of great content. It's very useful to see. Now, you may remember the Convington Catholic High School kids that were all at a place in, I think, D.C., and this Native American guy came up to them and he was beating the drum, and they're kind of doing their own little protest thing, and the students were there just kind of observe the memorial the statues and stuff like that, I think. Something along those lines. And anyway, the news organization started painting them as if they were like, as if these MAGA kids were like bullying this Native American protester and standing in his way, blocking him, kind of threatening him in a way. And the news just went with it hardcore. They started really going after the kid. They doxed him. Even, I think, like Kathy Griffin was saying, dox his kid, beat him up, blah, blah. It's just things like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, like a lot of comments and stuff like that. So they went and it turned out all be BS. I mean, the kid was pretty innocent. He's just awkwardly smiling. He's just a kid. He doesn't really know what to do. He's like, I'm sure he's pretty shocked, but just kind of playing along, And so anyway, they sued Washington Post for libel, for slandering the kid and making the a lot of harassment and stuff. Basically bullied him, and the judge threw it out. They tossed the case, but now it got reopened. And these are actually the guys that are the legal team that's representing him. There's supposed to be a judgment today as well, which I haven't seen yet. But in regards to Elon Musk and the guy that Elon Musk called a pedophile, remember the Philippine kids that were stuck in the cave, and like it filled up with water and they were stuck in there for like a week or something like that. They're trying to get them out, and Elon Musk was suggesting it. They send like some little submarine, a Tesla little submarine, to help them get out. One of the divers basically made fun of him or something, saying that's stupid. And then I think Elon Musk responded and implied something about him being a pedo guy, like a pedophile guy. So then Elon Musk kind of took it back and said, well, I didn't mean it literally like pedophile. It's just something you say for someone who looks like a creeper kind of thing, or something along those lines. So anyway, the attorneys that are representing that guy are also representing Nick Sandman, who is the kid that you see here with the MAGA hat, in this case. So it looks like this could be like a serious thing. I mean, $250 million libel lawsuit against the Washington Post. That's pretty serious. That's a big, that'd be a big payout. And, to some degree, they should, Washington Post should have to stand to this, because it's not, they don't have their publication, they don't just have free speech. They can't just say whatever they want. They have to be careful with what they actually publish, since they are a publisher. So they're not a platform where someone went on with comments and said something. They're actually publishing their own content and have an editorial process. There would have been several people that read it. And we just saw this yesterday, like in the news thing you saw yesterday, the titles that they're posting about al-Baghdadi, saying like he was like a religious scholar and stuff. And like just these weird angles that Washington Post takes. And yes, this is the Amazon-owned Washington Post. Also, in another, this again from Information Liberation, there's this case with this kid who's actually a twin. I didn't know, I just found out he was a twin. But there's a 7-year-old son who the mother, not the biological mother, but in vitro, so it's not her eggs, it's a donor egg, this guy's sperm. They have these twins, and one of the twins, the kid James, basically the mother wants to put the kid through chemical castration, converting him over to female. So she had this idea that he wanted to be a female because he liked this toy or something along those lines. So they just kind of had this idea that he wanted to be like that. The father was kind of opposing it, saying wait and see. They ruled against him, saying that he doesn't have any options to say that. He just has to be informed, and that's it. And the judge basically came back, because they got a lot of backlash for this. A lot of people, especially a lot of conservatives and Christians and stuff like that, saying you can't do this to a kid. This is child abuse. Even Rand Paul, Greg Abbott, I think a governor of Texas, I believe, saying that they're actually looking into this as a kind of a protective services case. Like, this is child abuse. The kid's 7 years old, and they're the mother wants to push him through these. And there's even videos supposedly of the kid saying he doesn't want to go through this. So whether or not that's contradicting some other information they have that might suggest he does, if he was coerced in that video to say he doesn't, maybe by the dad, something, they're battling all this kind of stuff out right now. But you see Senator Rand Paul saying the same thing. We don't let kids drink alcohol till they're 21. We don't let them smoke. Why are we doing this to a 7-year-old? It's just not, doesn't make sense. And I don't think anybody really thinks that this makes sense to do this to a kid. Even if the kid wanted to, you basically, I say, you got to wait. You just got to wait till you're older, maybe 16 or something like that. If you're, the last 10 years you've been talking about, okay, whatever. But 7 years old, just bizarre. So they wrote that he'll have a say in it now, but he's not allowed to talk about it anymore. So he had a site up with information, trying to get legal fees and stuff like that, which the judge also said that he doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to pay the legal fees. And but you're not allowed to publicly talk about it anymore. So a little bizarre in that sense, but kind of like they're sweeping it under the rug, like, okay, we'll give you an inch here, but don't talk about it anymore because we don't want all this backlash. It's a little bizarre. So also,
the Senate on Monday rejected an effort by Senator
Rand Paul was pushing forward a bill to try to cut spending by 2% to their, I guess, previous 2019 levels. They shut it down. 24 people voted for it. 67 rejected it. Basically, they're just saying that, we need money for the military, stuff like that. They've been pumping this economy up for a while now. Something's got to give. He's always kind of been a libertarian, so he's always pushing for less spending. You can't spend your way to success with, a lot of these programs that they have. So interesting that there are still actually some people there voting, but 67 people shooting it down, just saying that you just want to reduce the spending, especially in domestic funding. Like, there's so many ways. Like, they had the penny, I think the penny idea, where they take 1% off everything, and then each department has to kind of deal with those cuts, and it's just 1%. So it's take a penny off everything, essentially. So I don't think that would be crazy to say cut spending, reduce spending by 2%. That's tens and tens of billions of dollars a year, at least. But where the direction they're going right now is unsustainable with the amount of money that they're pumping into the economy day by. They're putting tens of billions of dollars into the economy each month to keep it propped up, to just keep this thing rolling. And tying to that, there's this guy, Michael Pinto, I went back and checked some of his kind of other prediction stuff. He's pretty on point. What he's referencing is real information. Whether or not things actually respond to that information is a different kind of story, so you can't always be right. Things can be a bubble. It doesn't mean the bubble's going to bust, and you don't know how big the bubble gets before it busts. But this article goes into some little detail, and then this video is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good video to watch. So check that out. This is nothing to panic about. I wouldn't go pull out all your money out of your stocks or anything like that, but diversify, get some gold. I would always get gold anyway, but I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, so don't take advice from me. Just cool information. Boeing, you'll see they're having a little bit of issues today with, they went to Capitol Hill to talk to the U.S. Senate on this hearing about the issues that happened with the crashes. There's 2 crashes where hundreds of people died because basically the safety mechanism in the plane was trying to compensate and fix the plane, but it was incorrect, and it just nosedived the plane to the ground. So it's trying to stop the plane from stalling and falling. So it tries to aim the plane downward to get speed, but it was doing that incorrectly. It wasn't actually stalling. It was a false trigger. So, and there was a way to bypass that. So when that started to happen, there is a method to bypass that, or there is even supposed to be a button, like a security button or something like that they could hit, which was a paid option. So they had to pay maybe a few $100s for the plane extra to just be able to get this little button. Turns out most places didn't opt in for that. They didn't know how to bypass it otherwise, and a couple of people got caught in the situation where this thing gets triggered and they don't know how to respond. So anyway, these people, I believe it's the CEO. Yeah, the CEO went to a hearing today with a couple of the other people from the company, and a bunch of the families there of the people who've died were basically saying, look at this, you got to apologize to us. And the guy turns around and says sorry, and we'll have to see what happens, and I don't know what they're going to do, but their stock took a hit, quite a, maybe 10-20% or so. Their stock's been hit a little bit, not too bad, all things considered, really, because they sold a lot of these planes. They got orders, tons and tons of orders, so they had a really good year when they had all these orders starting to get delivered, and they're actually coming in ahead of time and stuff like that. I think they got a little cocky, got ahead of themselves. They maybe didn't double check a few things that they really should have, because if they had have found out, or at least published information saying like, oh, we got to ground a couple of these because of this, it's a lot hard. It's almost like the situation where a lot of companies would rather get hit with a fine and deal with the repercussions later and actually reap the benefits now, so they can get all the money and all the things now. Like drug companies do this all the time. So they do something knowing that they're going to get smashed with it. So sweep it under the rug. We'll pay the $2 billion fine. In the meantime, we're going to make about $15 billion. So who cares? That's kind of seems like what this was here. So we'll see what happens anyway. Their stock's probably going to take a little abuse over the next week or so. But if they keep selling the planes and keep fixing them, really, the cost to fix them is negligible compared to the amount of money they're making off each one. And it seems like the sentiment for the 737 MAX, like a lot of people didn't even want to go on the planes when the things started crashing. So they grounded all of them. And even when they started putting them back online, people were still like, I don't want to get on that one. I don't want to. But it seems like that's kind of moved over now. People just don't realize that they're probably going to do a name change. 737 MAX, probably going to do 737 redo, whatever they're going to call it. So Sony had a streaming service called PlayStation Vue, where it's basically a cable subscription service, but they were streaming it. And it could be like anywhere between $10-15 up to like $80 for streaming. Turns out they're going to basically sell this subscriber base. They have about 500,000 people on the subscription service, which was closer to 1 million the year before. And they're just basically going to sell the subscriber base, maybe some of the tech, probably not even any of the licensing deals. So it's kind of interesting that they're doing this, considering, I mean, they kind of did the same thing with Spotify, and they have PlayStation Music. Kind of feel like they should do the same thing with Netflix or something, and have Netflix PlayStation hybrid, because you could sign up to Spotify through PlayStation, and I'm assuming PlayStation gets an extra little piece of the fee in that case, but that was in order for Sony to put their catalog onto, I think that was one of the conditions Sony had, to put their catalog on Spotify, because they had the largest music catalog in the world. You might remember back when Michael Jackson was alive, he actually bought this catalog, which includes the Beatles and just tons of, like, even just beats that you can't even, like licensing beats and all this kind of stuff that are in everything. So they owned all, and even his own music collection was part of this. So Michael Jackson bought it, and then he sold like half of it back to Sony for like 3 times as much. And then they bought and sold quite a few times. And then I think just recently the Jackson family, I think, relinquished most of the control of it back to Sony for something like $500 million, something like that. I mean, I still think it'd be worth a lot more. Even when Napster and stuff was coming out, it was just like, it's a matter of time before they do some sort of subscription model. And sure enough, that's what happens. They end up partnering back over. They had their own music. They had Sony Music. They had Sony Music Unlimited. And that was a great service. It was like Spotify before Spotify, but they didn't have any other, like they didn't have a lot of other catalogs. Spotify broke that code. They figured it out. So eventually Sony had to kind of go back to Spotify and be like, okay, let's finally make this deal, get the catalog on there. And so they went and tried to do the same thing with PlayStation Vue, except they weren't really using their own catalog. They're essentially like selling HBO channels and stuff like that. So it would have been nice to see PlayStation Vue do something more like a unlimited movie. And so Bell has this kind of thing with Crave TV. They have a bunch of content on there, which is a Netflix competitor, but they pair that with their cable services, so internet cable or cable internet or TV, cable TV. So would have been interesting to see that, but looks like they're going to sell it, take the cash and run. I mean, it's a 500,000 subscribers, so it looks like someone will pick it up. There was some rumor there that I think it was Fubo TV, it's type of sports Netflix type channel that does some of its original programming, but we'll have to see if anybody actually wants to pick it up. Otherwise, you're going to have to fold it into something, because you don't want to lose that subscriber base. So that's 500,000 people paying 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks on average. So we're going to skip this one. This was just kind of a waste there. So I thought this was kind of interesting. I want to know how much Joaquin Phoenix got paid for the Joker. Supposedly he got paid $4.5 million, which is the same he got paid for Walk the Line. A little more than he got for Walk the Line. So he got paid $1 million for Signs, which would have been pretty good considering the time. $3.5 million for Walk the Line, and then $4.5 million for Joker. I really hope he got some back end deal of this. You know, because they're not going to do a lot of merchandising or anything like that, like if at all. There might be some kind of spin-off stuff that people will license a little bit, but you're not going to have the whole toy thing stuff. So chances are he didn't take any back end. He just took the money and ran, because the thing could flop, might not flop. He wasn't really sure even during the process. So, like, of the movie itself, there's a lot, kind of like some conflict there. Not really sure if he's doing it right, and et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be interesting to see if he actually got anything on the back end, which I doubt he did. I think he just took the money and ran. Which I probably would too, but seeing that it made $800 million so far and should hit $1 billion, and I think it's beating Deadpool, which I think was the highest R-rated movie ever. They didn't even know that you could do an R-rated movie that would hit $1 billion or hundreds of millions even, so very interesting. And on a lighter note, even though this wasn't, crazy one, but we'll watch some penguins make some sounds. I mean, there's something weird about those things. Like, you see those guys run around, especially when you see like 100,000 of them all together, and they got their little babies in a pile. Like, they do like little daycares with their babies. The guys will like hold the eggs for a bunch, and the mom will go and get food. Really bizarre animal, very bizarre. I mean, look at those feet. Like, it looks like fake feet, man. They don't look like real feet. It doesn't even look like this thing should be able to. A bear would just come up and eat this, just tear it in half. They have a field day. Where's all the polar bears eating this? But they got these giant beaks on them. Like, you push him, like he pushes his big fat ass up with this. Ugh, how does it even, man? He might all just be like half air. But look at that thing, man. What a beast. That's as tall as a human right there. That's a 6-foot penguin right there. And I'm pretty sure he would just poke your eyes out. Penguins are fascinating creatures. Anyway, that was the second episode of the Tim Radio Show. If you guys like it, make sure you share it, subscribe it, comment, do all that stuff. It's the only way to teach the Google algorithms to appreciate our content and push it further, and share it out to more people itself. So if you share it, it will share it. So if you like it, please help us out. If you don't like it, then, well, you probably didn't watch this far, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one.